is here. We have family members and extended family members and just some friends that are here. And thank you very, very much. I hope everybody has a copy of the program. And if you would like to have an extra copy to take to some other family members or friends, we certainly have extra copies as well. Before we get on to the formal program itself, and I have a number of introductions to do and thank yous, and then we have a number of speakers here today, what we would like to start off first to do, though, is the actual uncovering of the VDOT sign. And we have asked direct descendant Bruce Fuller-Light to do the honors. So, and Bruce, if you could go and do your thing. Well, you notice no one is following to go out there.
Cham. I'll just stand in the way, that's fine. Cham. I mean, he cannot be any more in the camera right now. Literally.
Well, it's a nice and visible spot, and people have it. All right. Bruce and Greg, I think a round of applause. As I said, welcome to the dedication of the historical marker for Joel Leftwich and the Virginia Brigade and their contributions in the War of 1812. It's nice that the state of Virginia finally caught up with West Virginia, who had a similar marker that has been erected, we think, back around 1932 or 1934. So it's nice that Joel's native state finally caught up with West Virginia in that regard. And there's the write-up of the marker in West Virginia is also on the program. And if you've never been to Point Pleasant, to where the Kanawha River runs into the Ohio River, it's a beautiful spot, and it's worth a trip sometime if you're ever out that way. We've got a lot of thank yous to acknowledge today, and really something like this seems like a simple affair until you get involved in it, and I can tell you it gets a lot more complicated than you would think. But really the first person that we have to thank, and really who has become like a member of this family, and I'll start crying because I like the guy so much, is Stuart Lee Butler. Stuart came to the Leftwich Historical Association meeting, what, Stuart, 4 or 5 years ago, I guess, for the first time,
about 3 years,
and said he was writing a book on Joel Leftwich and the Virginia Brigade in the War of 1812. And since then, as I said, Stuart has just become like a member of the family, has attended some of the other Leftwich events, and was really the person that initiated this sign and did all the paperwork for this, and none of this would be possible if it wasn't for Stuart. And Stuart, you deserve a big thank you and a big round of applause. There are a number of other people that I want to thank, and right at the top of the list is Sally Schneider and the Lynchburg Historical Foundation. Let's give Sally a round of applause. Everybody who knows history and historical reservation work in Central Virginia knows Sally. She works as a part-time employee of the Lynchburg Historical Foundation, but she really works full-time, and then she brings her husband, Jeff, who willingly helps to so many events, and they do so many things, and she's been a help partly as a receiver of the monies and dispenser of the monies for this thing, so that we can do this as a tax deductible event, as well as provided a lot of just emotional support and everything else. And again, Sally and Jeff, thank you very much for all that you do. Neither one of the state officials are here today, but Kelly Spradley Kurowski, who worked closely with Stuart to get the plaque approved, and then Kimberly Nichols of the Virginia Department of Transportation is who I worked with to actually get the sign out here. Both of them were really have been fine people to work with, and again, deserve our appreciation. And then finally, and I know a lot of us here are members of the Leftwich Historical Association, really Sally Kneifel and the board of the of LHA and really the whole extended Leftwich family deserves a big thank you. The funding for this was not provided by the state, and the family was very responsive, and we've really, not made money off this, but we've pretty well broken even on the event, and it's in large part due to the people on the back of the program, some of whom are here today, like Bob Leftwich is here, and Ray Tarpley, and Sally Leftwich Greer from the Leftwich Historical Association, and Dave Howard and others who helped contribute to the cost of this, but certainly the LHA group and the individuals who made a contribution to the cost deserve a big thank you and a round of applause. You know, whenever you start to name names, you're always concerned that you're going to leave somebody out in the thank yous. So as I stand around here and look, just about everybody deserves a thank you for some role in this ceremony today. So what I'm going to do is just ask everybody to give everybody a round of applause, and that way we can get all the bases covered. The final introductions that we will do are those of us who are fortunate to be identified as direct descendants of General Joel. And I'm going to start off with this grand lady up here in front who, while she is not a blood relative of General Joel, she's certainly married into the Leftwich family, and Helga Leftwich is just, it means so much to have you up here, Helga, and thank you. And her daughter, Helga L. Leftwich, Helga Jr., brought Helga from here today, and again, it means so much to have both of you all here. Other direct descendants that are here are Doug Light, who is going to make some comments a little bit later on when he does the reading of the soldiers who passed away during their time of service. His brother Bill Light, the Honorable William Light, is here. We've already seen Bruce in action. I mean, he's already done his service for us today. His son Breck is here. Breck is somewhere here in the crowd. Breck's back there. Caroline, the youngest of the descendants that's here today, is here. Of course, their spouse is here. And let's see, my son Trey is the cameraman. So thank you, Trey, for doing the camera work. With that said, we are going to ask Helga Leftwich, young Helga, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I leave, I just want to say personally my own personal thanks, and especially to Champ, who didn't say anything about himself, but worked tirelessly not only on this, but on a number of other Leftwich-related projects. So I think you give Champ a big hand.
Thank you, Helga. And with that, I would like to call on the Reverend Todd Vi, who is the priest at St. Paul's Episcopal Church, to do the invocation.
Let us pray. O Creator of the world and Judge of the nations, we remember before you with gratitude and thanksgiving the men and women of our country who in the day of decision ventured much for the liberties we now enjoy. On this day in particular, we remember and honor the service and bravery of General Joel Leftwich and the Virginia Brigade in the War of 1812, and in so doing we dedicate and set apart this memorial. May all who pass this memorial be reminded of the service rendered on their behalf. May all who pass this memorial say a prayer for all who have sacrificed for generations yet unknown. May all who pass this memorial be convicted of their own duty to this country yet unfulfilled. Grant that we may not rest until all the people of this land share the benefits of true freedom and gladly accept its disciplines. This we ask in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord.
Amen.
You know, it's particularly fitting. Augustine Leftwich Sr. was a vestryman in the what was, I think, at that time not called the Episcopal Church, but the American Anglican Church, so thus is the Episcopal connection with the family. If you'll refer to your agenda, the next item on our agenda is remarks by Stuart on General Joel and the Virginia Brigade in the War of 1812. So, Stuart, if you could come to the podium.
Can everyone hear?
A little higher.
A little higher. Okay now?
Yeah.
A little better. Feel like George Washington with Newburgh. My glasses. Service. Okay. Well, thank you, Tram, for those kind remarks, for asking me to provide a talk here this afternoon at the dedication of the highway marker in honor of Joel Leftwich. I appreciate it also to the Virginia Department of Transportation and the Department of Historical Resources, the Lynchburg Historical Foundation, and the Leftwich Family Association, and all those others who are here and made this possible. I am truly honored to talk about General Joel Leftwich's activities in the War of 1812 and the Leftwich family in general. Before I started my research about Virginia during the War of 1812, I had never heard of Joel Leftwich or about his courageous march into Ohio during the winter of 1812 and 1813. I soon learned, though, that Joel Leftwich was a product of a remarkable Virginia family, which had its roots deep in 17th century Virginia. I say remarkable because Joel and his family were very remarkable people. Now, in what ways were they remarkable? I submit to you the following. Joel's father, Augustine Leftwich, who lived to be in his 80s, was the patriarch of 12 children, 8 sons and 4 daughters, all who survived into childhood, married and had large families. This is clearly remarkable when one considers the time in which they were born, and the likelihood that 1 or 2 children did not survive beyond 3 years. Of course, no less remarkable was Mary Leftwich, who bore all of Augustine's children. Of the 8 sons, at least 5, perhaps 6, including Joel, served in the Revolutionary War. Many, like Joel, went on to continue to serve as leaders in their local counties, either in the militia, justices of the peace, legislators in the General Assembly, or in the U.S. Congress. Although Virginia had its Randolphs, Byrds, Carters, and Lees, and the like, it also had to have its Leftwiches and families like that to make Virginia's civil and military institutions function as well as they did, and to now, at this point. By the end of the Revolutionary War, Joel Leftwich attained the rank of ensign and was a veteran of the battles of Brandywine, Germantown, Hampton, and Guilford Courthouse, the latter in which he was wounded. He was also at Valley Forge. Joel continued his military career in the Bedford County Militia after the war and became Brigadier General of the 12th Virginia Brigade in 1809. Joel also served in the House of Delegates from Bedford in 1792 and 93 and as Justice of Peace for many years. In September 1812, Governor James Barber selected General Leftwich as commander of some 1,500 Virginia militia to march from Point Pleasant on the Ohio River to help reinforce General William Henry Harrison and take back the fort from the British. We do not know the reasons why Governor Barber selected Leftwich over the 19 other generals at the time. but Leftwich's age and his Revolutionary War experience may have played a part of the governor's decision. At the time of his appointment, Richmond's Enquirer newspaper described Leftwich as, although 50, actually 52, looked much younger than his years. An excellent rifleman, fond of athletic and manly exercise, generous and mild in his disposition and manners, yet prompt and firm, with a reputation among those who know him for courage as high and as great as any man on earth. Joel and his brother Bez, his Inspector General, arrived at Point Pleasant on September 28, 1812, where they began to organize his brigade from the county militias of Western Virginia, now the state of West Virginia. Before setting off across the Ohio, General Leftwich wrote his wife Nancy that he hoped his men would be up to the governor's expectation by performing some military feats of valor that will give dignity to the honor of the United States. The Virginia brigade that Leftwich commanded crossed the Ohio on October 22nd of that year and made its way northwest to the state capital at Chillicothe, at that time the capital, Franklinton, which is now Columbus, Delaware, and then Upper Sandusky, arriving at the latter place on January 19th of 1813. There they were met by a like number of Pennsylvania militia who had somehow dragged some 20 field guns on makeshift sleds all the way from Pittsburgh. From Upper Sandusky, it was 60 miles across the howling Ohio wilderness to the Maumee River, where General Harrison planned to establish a major post from which to retake Detroit. Standing between the Virginians and the Maumee River, however, was the great 30 Mile, a nearly impenetrable ice swamp called the Black Swamp. Almost impassable in the summer, it was nearly impossible to cross during the winter. At that time, the weather would freeze, thaw, snow, and then rain and freeze again, leaving huge lakes of mush to suck up wagon wheels and gun carriages, not to mention men's bodies along the way. Here there were no roads and few identifiable terrain features to guide the men across. Early settlers of the area avoided the place like the plague, and with good reason. The Virginia Brigade left Upper Sandusky on January 24th and managed somehow to get its wagons, guns, and supplies across the dreaded Black Swamp. And stamina, in my opinion, ranks as the statistical feat of accomplishment in American military history. Virginians arrived at the Maumee River on February 2nd and immediately began to help build Fort Meigs, the largest wooden palisaded fort ever built in North America. Assisting them were several thousand Pennsylvania and Ohio militia. At Fort Meigs, conditions were abysmal, to say the least. In the middle of the winter, the ground was frozen hard and next to impossible to dig holes deep enough for the log walls. When it was not snowing, it was sleeting or raining, causing large rivulets of mud to drown every part of the town. Several men died each day from various diseases and from adverse physical conditions during the time the post was being constructed. On March 4th, 1813, General Leftwich wrote his wife that nearly 30 of his men had died so far due to the excessive cold and conditions that exceeded, in his recollection, any that had occurred during the Revolutionary War. And remember, he was a survivor of Valley Forge. General Leftwich assumed command of the post on March 7th, when General Harrison left to recruit more troops for the coming spring offensive. Leftwich would command the post until early April, when the Virginia Brigade service expired. Now, Leftwich would have stayed beyond his 6-month service, he told General Harrison, but felt compelled to march at the head of his troops home should they decide to do so. So they did. His men were eager to return home for the spring planting season. Besides, they had not been paid since last October at Point Pleasant, and legally were not authorized to remain under federal authority. Writing to his wife, Nancy, he said, "I can inform you that I have discharged the duties of my office with fidelity to my country and impartial justice to those under my command, and never had had cause to think of one instance that the Commander-in-Chief had not been displeased with any part of my conduct." Leftwich's and Virginia Brigade's deepest disappointment, however, was that they returned home further having fought or defeated the British and their Indian allies in battle. But through sheer tenacity and physical endurance, they conquered the Black Swamp, helped build Fort Meigs, and brought valuable supplies and guns to lay the groundwork for an eventual American victory over the British later in October. During the entire expedition, of nearly over 500 miles from Point Pleasant and back, the Virginia Brigade was sustained 44 deaths by the time it returned home in April and May. Considering the conditions, and probably a modest number used, given the conditions. Most of the men were buried at a number of locations across northern Ohio, including many at Upper Sandusky and Delaware. At least 6 soldiers we know are buried at Fort Meigs. No dirt there or more, but records do not indicate that many of the men were interred. Writing to Governor Barber a year after the Ohio campaign, General Leftwich summed up his feelings over his brigade's accomplishments. He said, although they were not so fortunate as to see the enemy, that tour of service, they sustained cold and fatigue and all the privations incident to a winter campaign, with that degree of obedience, cheerfulness, and fortitude characteristic of real patriots and heroic soldiers, and have a just claim to my gratitude and confidence. In August of 14, General Leftwich was once more called into the field by Governor Barber to lead a brigade of militia to Richmond, when the British entered Chesapeake Bay with a large squadron. Of Virginia's 20 brigadier generals at the time of militia, Joel Leftwich was the only general to lead 2 brigades during the war, assuming that either Richmond or Norfolk were the objectives. Several militia brigades were formed around Richmond for its defense. Leftwich's brigade, the second, consisted of nearly 2,000 men from Piedmont, Virginia. The immediate British threat to Norfolk and Richmond appeared to diminish. The governor ordered General Leftwich, along with General Breckinridge, 3rd Brigade, to march north to Washington and Baltimore in October of 1814, to protect those cities from any future British attacks. Leftwich's brigade was part of some 5,000 Virginia soldiers who were stationed around Washington and Baltimore by December of 1814. Upon the 2nd Brigade's discharge in late November 1814, his brigade officers wrote a moving memorial to their former commander by expressing in part their highly pleasing reflection that were to be commanded by an officer distinguished for those traits of character which adorned the citizen's private life, for his knowledge of military tactics, for his experience in the field, and for his established courage. And should future situation make it necessary for them once more to take the defensive field, may you be their general. General Joel Leftwich attained the rank of Major General in the Virginia Militia January 10, 1822, the highest militia rank at that time. Following the war, Joel became a breeder of fine Virginia racehorses, an expert rifle shot. He won many shooting prizes all over Virginia. He died at the ripe old age of 84 on October 20th, 1846, and is buried just a few miles from here. Joel and Nancy left one son, Captain Jack Leftwich. The fact that I know Elder and Sam appreciate very much. Joel Leftwich was, as his obituary stated, a hero of 2 wars, and his services in both deserve to be held in grateful remembrance by a grateful country. For all of these reasons, and more left unstated, we dedicate this historical marker today to a truly remarkable life. By doing so, we hope that more Americans will become aware and appreciative of our many unsung heroes who fought in a war that has long been overlooked and little recognized over these many years. Thank you very much.
Stuart, thank you very, very much. Stuart really is the authority on General Joel, and I know when he worked on the publication of his book, there were a great many things that he found out that quite honestly the family wasn't aware of. And one of those was the exact march, and there's a copy of the march in the program. I don't know if any of you all would be interested in purchasing Stuart's book or not. He did not bring any copies with him today, but I do have the book order forms for anybody who would like to purchase the book. I've got a form for it that I'll be happy to give you a copy of. If you notice on the program, Stuart is on the board of the I probably will not get this.
The Citizens Advisory Council.
The Citizens Advisory Commission for the War of 1812, and joining him today are 2 of the other commissioners and 2 good friends who it's great to have here with us. Peter Broadbent and his wife are here from Richmond on their way to Roanoke. And if you haven't had a chance to speak to Peter, please introduce yourself. And then Cranston Williams, who is not on the commission but has had Cranston has more to do with more historical societies in the western part of the state and across Virginia than literally anybody I know. I just assumed you were on the commission, Cranston, because you're on all the boards of everything. So, and it turns out that Cranston has a Leftwich connection through his wife, who is a descendant of Colonel Thomas. So it's particularly nice to have Cranston here with us, and thank you very much. The next speaker on the agenda is Dr. Ray Tarpley, who is a descendant of Colonel Thomas and, excuse me, Colonel Jabez, who was Joel's younger brother, but they were very, very close. And as Stuart's already noticed, he was the Inspector General of the brigade. And Ray, if you could come forth and share some comments about Jabez, we would appreciate it. Thank you. I'll let you figure out how you want to use the microphone.
As Sham indicated, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, Colonel Jabez Leftwich Sr., was born in Virginia in 1765. He was the youngest son of Augustine Sr. and Mary Moxford Leftwich. He was raised in Bedford County, and he raised 9 children in Bedford County, having inherited his father's plantation on Goose Creek as a young man after marrying his stepsister, Delilah Stovall. He died in 1855 in Huntsville, Alabama. During his 89 years and 9 months was a lifetime of family devotion, achievement, and service. During the War of 1812 and the march we are commemorating, Jabez served as Brigade Inspector General with the rank of Major. He suffered maladies as indicated along with the other troops, including yellow jaundice, but continued to perform his duties. Documents during the march bear his firm, crisp signature. He no doubt was a very welcome and comforting companion to his brother Joel. Given that Jabez had a father in the French and Indian War and all 7 older brothers in the Revolution and officers in the Virginia militia, it was inevitable that he would have a military component to his life. He was too young for the Revolutionary War. His military career began when he was commissioned ensign in the Virginia militia in 1789, and he moved through the ranks to major in the War of 1812 and Colonel Commandant of the 91st Regiment in 1816. He resigned from the militia in 1822 due to conflicts with his government service in Washington. Jabez, by the way, is credited in books and on the internet as being a brigadier general, and it's listed on his gravestone. This derives from his being approved by the Virginia House of Delegates in 1824 for brigadier general, but was disallowed because, as I indicated, he resigned his commission in 1822. And he, by the way, always signed documents as Colonel Jabez Leftwich. Jabez had a strong political government service career in Virginia as a Whig, and this was the forerunner of the Republican Party. He served as Justice of the Peace in Bedford County and in the Virginia House of Delegates from 1801 to 1809. He was elected for 2 terms in the 17th and 18th U.S. Congress from 1821 through 1825. While he was there, he rubbed shoulders with Daniel Webster and Henry Clay and supported President Monroe. He was defeated for a 3rd term in 1825 by the wave of Jacksonian democracy that was sweeping the country. But he was not about to retire at that time. He sold his property in Bedford County in 1827, and at the age of 62 joined some of his children in Madison County, Alabama. There he continued and was elected tax assessor and collector and justice of the peace. He also served for a number of years in the Alabama State House of Representatives, where he was particularly recognized for his parliamentary expertise. In 2002, Colonel Jabez was honored as an outstanding citizen of Huntsville, Alabama, at his graveside in the beautiful Maple Hill Cemetery in Huntsville. The ceremony was
marked by reenactment and a family member dressed as Jabez, complete with period boots and sword. The ceremony was attended by approximately 5,000 participants. Jabez balanced his life with agriculture as a base. From various documents and letters, he was always involved in supervising the family farm. But of course it was punctuated with military and government service at the county, state, and national levels. He was a very devoted family man. He was married to his wife Delilah for 61 years. And he also engaged in various mercantile businesses. He and his brother Joel were very close and exchanged many letters which we have preserved in university libraries. From a reading of these letters that I've done, it's clear that Jabez was a man of education, poise, and accomplishment, always exuding a sense of honesty and reliability. He lived as an exemplary Christian. He was a member of the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. It's reported in his obituary that when he was informed of his impending death at the age of 90, that he answered simply, "Very well, I am ready." Thank you.
Ray, thank you very much. It really is remarkable when you see what these various brothers did and how closely they all worked together. It's very inspirational. And to continue on that realm, we're going to call on Morgan David Howard, who is the fifth great grandson of Captain Uriah Leftwich.
These contributions made by the brothers and nephews of General Joe Leftwich in the War of 1812. The Second War for Independence was fought 36 years after the First War. 1812 would become a significant time in early American history, but patience and the art of the soldiers of other Bedford County initiatives. Some of the strategies with the mustered to military service to demonstrate once again their pride and honor to fight against the British invasion on newly won rights to freedom from domination by English rulers. These Leftwich freedom fighters would include the following brave and real patriots: Revolutionary War Captain Uriah Leftwich, Sr., son, served under a younger brother, Brigadier General Joe Leftwich, commander of the Virginia Brigade of the War of 1812. Nicodemus Leftwich, born in 1773 in Bedford County. He received a commission on 16 June 1811 as a lieutenant in the 3rd Regiment in the 2nd Brigade. He was in his aunt Mary Leftwich Early's husband's company, Captain Joshua Early. Captain Early received his commission on 8 August 1804, and he died on the 3rd of November 1814. Nicodemus took command of this militia following the unexpected death of his uncle, Captain Joshua Early. Uriah Leftwich, Jr., born in 1778 in Bedford County and died in Norfolk, Virginia as a member of the 1st militia that was sent to Norfolk in the summer of 1812 at the young age of 34. His rank at the time was lieutenant. He died along with 7 others of what was termed bilious fever, probably at Fort Norfolk. He was most likely in Captain Mark Anthony's artillery unit, as that was the only unit from Leftwich to serve so early in Norfolk. John Leftwich. He is my 4th great-grandfather. born in 1785 and at the age of 27 lost his life during the War of 1812. He was the youngest of Augustine's grandsons to give his life for his country during the Second War for freedom from tyranny. Additional research is currently underway to examine John Leftwich's service record in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. Now, the last that I'm going to talk about is a younger brother, along with General Gold and Colonel Tavera. This is Lieutenant Colonel Littlebury Leftwich, born in 1757 and died 4 June 1823 in Bedford County. He was a major in the 3rd Regiment, Virginia Militia, during the War of 1812, and later a lieutenant colonel in the 10th Regiment of Virginia. He did not resign his commission, he held it. A few Leftwich descendants who have had distinguished service since the War of 1812 are too numerous to mention or name here. However, 3 are: Captain Nicholas Taylor Fellers, United States Army, World War II, a Bedford boy, killed in action, June 1944, in the invasion in France. Lieutenant Ray Nance, United States Army, World War II, another Bedford boy, took command following his cousin's sudden death on the beaches of Normandy. And Lieutenant Colonel William Brown Leftwich, Jr., United States Marine Corps, killed in action in Vietnam. We salute their service to God and country. Thank you.
Dave, thank you very much, and it should be noted Dave was actually in the Air Force himself. Thank you for your service, Dave. This tablet out here, this historical marker, is just not about Joel Leftwich and the Leftwich family. It is also about the Virginia Brigade and the individuals that served in that brigade, and obviously, particularly those individuals who gave their lives during that time of service. I'd like to call on Doug Light, who's the 4th great-grandson of Major General Joel Leftwich, to read their names, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Privileged to honor these patriots who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Everyone should have this listing in your program on the next page if you'd like to follow. 1st Regiment, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel John Connell, John Anderson, Stephen Archer, George Arnold, Isaac Bacos, Jacob Brewer, Patrick Burke, William Carter, Richard Carson, John Clutter, Matthias Cullen, Edward Davis, Andrew Davison, Jesse Dabson, John Evans, George Fleming, Jonathan Grindstaff, Peter Hall, James Holbert, Nimrod Blanker, Archibald McCarty, Alexander McLean, Raleigh Morgan, Timothy Murphy, James Queen, Benjamin Rogers, Samuel Ruckman, Samuel Spivey, Andrew Stalkniker, John Steve, Gilda Wilcoxon, Henry Wiskoff, David Willa, and Jesse Yoder. The 2nd Regiment, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Dudley Evans, James Adair, Absalom Elkin, Thomas Craig, William Dixon, Isaac Foreman, Amos Huffman, Thomas Lewis, David Molesby, Henry Fitz, Simeon Stevens, and William Tannenbaum. God bless these Americans.
As Stuart said, we do not even know where a lot of these gentlemen are buried, and most of these men were younger men. They probably didn't have families. They may not have any descendants that we could identify, but like all people all individuals, men or women who give their life in service to the country, they need to be remembered, and we thought this was a fitting way to try to honor these individuals who did so. With that, we would like to call on the Reverend Diane Vi, who is a priest at St. John's Episcopal Church in Lynchburg, to do the closing benediction, please.
Let us pray. Lord God Almighty, in whose name the founders and defenders of this country won liberty for themselves and for us, and lit the torch of freedom for nations then unborn. Grant that we and all the people of this land may have grace to maintain our liberties in righteousness and peace. May we never forget the sacrifice made on our behalf. May we remain ever vigilant to safeguard the liberties secured through General Joel Leftwich and our forefathers for our children and our children's children. And now as you go in peace with the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very, very much, Diane. This concludes the formal presentation. I am having a very informal get-together, and I mean very informal get-together at my home, in Edie's home in Lynchburg. If you would care to come, it's going to take us a little bit of time to break things down here and get back home, but we are going to have some refreshments, strong and the not so strong there, as well as some cheeses and sort of finger food, and you're certainly welcome to attend. If you need directions to my home, I've got some directions from here to the house. It's about a half an hour in Lynchburg, but you're certainly welcome to come, and we're going to go back and hopefully have a little bit of time to talk with those who do care to do so. I'd just like to thank all of you who have been in attendance today, especially thank those who participated in the service, and I hope we'll never drive up and down this route that we don't think of Joel Leftwich in the Virginia Brigade. This is a very informal situation. Is there anybody else that would care to speak about anything? I mean, we're all family here, basically. Is there anybody that would care to say anything before we adjourn for the day?
Can you hear me? I think I can do this without, well, maybe. My sister Frances Leftwich, who was 2 years older than I, was, of the two of us, the one who was the true family historian. She wrote an article that I think Shirley Greer will remember in the Leftwich magazine several years ago. She spent a lot of time and a lot of interest learning about everything about our family. And I know she would and is. Not doing this very gracefully. But I know that if she were here, she would be so excited to be a part of this ceremony today. And I believe that she is here looking down and very proud and excited for all of this that's happening today. So thank you, and thank you for Frances.
Is there anything anybody else would care to share? Thank you for remembering Frances. With that, again, thank you for being here, and let's adjourn.